There's a heartbreaking truth no one likes to admit about aging. And no, it's not just about wrinkles or aching joints. The real fear is something far more chilling: the subtle signs that someone we love may be in their final year, and we might miss them until it's too late. As a doctor who has spent the last 20 years by the bedside of aging patients, I've seen the same hidden patterns play out again and again. Quiet changes, small shifts, and before anyone realizes, they're gone. If you've ever looked at your mother, your father, or even yourself and wondered, is there more going on than meets the eye? This video is for you, because recognizing these signs early could mean the difference between silent regret and precious extra time together. Today we're diving deep into 5 subtle, overlooked warning signs that often appear when someone is entering the final chapter of their life. We'll talk about a strange new fatigue that doesn't go away, no matter how much rest they get. Why sudden changes in appetite might be more dangerous than they seem. The hidden meaning behind a simple slip or fall. And that's just the beginning. Stick with me to the end, because I'm going to reveal one common behavior, something so ordinary you'd never suspect it, that quietly signals the body is preparing to shut down. You cannot afford to miss it. If you care about your loved ones, or even about your own future, you need to know these signs. You need to be ready, and most of all, you need to take action while you still can. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. This is where we fight for the dignity, the health, and the future of our seniors. And together, we stand up against a system that too often forgets them. Now, let's start with the first subtle sign, one you might already be seeing without even knowing it. The first subtle, devastating sign that someone may be entering their final year: a relentless, crushing fatigue, one that no amount of sleep can fix. We're not talking about being a little tired after gardening or chasing the grandkids around. This is a deep, bone-heavy exhaustion, the kind that weighs them down even after a full night's rest. You might notice them struggling to get out of a chair, or pausing halfway through a simple task, like folding laundry. At first, it's easy to brush off. They're just getting older, you might tell yourself. The second subtle, alarming sign: a sudden loss of appetite or unexplained weight loss that sneaks up without warning. Now listen carefully. Skipping a meal here and there isn't unusual. Maybe they're not in the mood. Maybe the food doesn't taste quite right anymore. But when eating, one of the most basic human instincts starts fading away completely, it's a red flag you cannot ignore. Food is survival. The body knows it. And when the body starts to give up, so does the hunger. I'll never forget Mrs. Carter. She was 79, a spirited woman who loved baking cookies every Sunday for her grandkids. Chocolate chip, oatmeal raisin, peanut butter. Her kitchen was the heart of her home. But last winter, something changed. First, she started nibbling instead of eating. Then, the cookies stopped. Her once plump, cheerful frame shrank before our eyes. At first, her daughter thought it was just depression, or maybe she was being picky about food. But by the time they realized it was more than that, by the time they understood her body was quietly shutting down, precious time had already slipped away. She passed 3 months later. It wasn't sudden, it was silent. Weight loss in seniors isn't always about diet, exercise, or even depression. Sometimes it's about the body no longer investing in itself, no longer fighting, no longer replenishing. When you see your loved one's clothes hanging looser, when their hands look thinner, when their face loses that healthy glow, it's time to ask hard questions. Because here's the cold, hard reality. When someone in their 70s, 80s, or 90s stops eating, it often means their body is preparing for the final goodbye. And if you don't recognize that, if you dismiss it as just aging, you could miss the window to step in, to comfort them, to make arrangements, to say the words that matter. Now let's be clear. Not every case of weight loss means the end is near. Sometimes it's fixable. Sometimes it's a side effect of medication, dental issues, or a temporary illness. But when it's paired with other subtle signs, like relentless fatigue, mood changes, or physical weakness, It's often a puzzle piece that points to something much bigger. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed a loved one shrinking before your eyes? Maybe you brushed it off. Maybe you're noticing it now. If you've seen these subtle signs in someone you care about, share your experience in the comments. Your story could help someone else recognize the warning signs in time, and it could give another family the chance to fight back, to make the final year filled with love, dignity, and meaning. We read every comment, and every single one matters. Now, we're after fatigue and appetite loss. What comes next? The third sign is something that catches many families off guard, something that seems like just an accident, but could be a deadly clue if you know what to look for. Let's keep going. The third subtle but critical sign, a sudden increase in fall or clumsiness that seems to come out of nowhere. Now, we all stumble once in a while. Maybe you miss a step, maybe you trip on the rug, but when an elderly person, who was once steady and sure, starts falling more often, it's not just bad luck. It's a warning, a cry from the body that something deeper is failing. And make no mistake, falls in seniors are not minor accidents. They are often the final tipping point. Studies from the CDC show that 1 in 5 falls causes a serious injury, like broken bones or head trauma, in seniors over 65. But what those numbers don't show is what happens after the fall, the slow unraveling, the loss of confidence, the downward spiral that, for many, marks the beginning of the end. Let me tell you about Mr. Reynolds, a retired firefighter, tough as nails. He prided himself on doing his own yard work well into his 80s. But last fall, he tripped over a garden hose. One tiny stumble, one tiny crack in the armor. At first, he laughed it off, said he was fine, but then came another fall, this time in the kitchen, then another, reaching for a sweater. Within months, Mr. Reynolds went from fiercely independent to needing full-time care. Not because of the falls themselves, but because of what the falls revealed. His muscles were weakening, his reflexes were slowing, his brain was starting to struggle with coordination. The system was breaking down, silently, relentlessly. If someone you love starts falling, even once, don't brush it off. Don't assume it's just clumsiness, because when the body's balance system falters, it often signals widespread weakness. And weakness in the elderly is not just a symptom, it's a battle cry. It's the body's way of saying, I'm losing the fight. And if we listen, really listen, we might have a chance to respond, to help them stand a little longer, to walk beside them through the final stretch, instead of leaving them to fall alone. Think about it. Have you seen a parent, a grandparent, or even yourself stumble more often lately? Did it make you pause? Did it make your heart sink just for a second? If so, you're not imagining things, and you're not overreacting. Your instincts are sharper than you realize, trust them. Because recognizing the fall, the real fall, not just the physical one, could mean the difference between dignity and despair. Now, fatigue, loss of appetite, falls. You might be wondering, what else could possibly go wrong? Sadly, the fourth subtle sign is even harder to spot, and it attacks not the body but the very spirit itself. Let's move forward and talk about the silent enemy within. The fourth subtle and heartbreaking sign: withdrawal, pulling away from friends, family, and the life they once loved. At first, it's easy to miss. Maybe they skip a birthday party, maybe they cancel a lunch date, maybe they start answering the phone less often. You tell yourself they're just tired or they need more rest these days. But deep down, something much heavier is happening. When people sense, even if they can't explain it, that their time is running out, they often begin to detach. They start pulling back, quietly, softly, sometimes without even realizing it themselves. It's the soul preparing for the final journey, and if you don't catch it, you could be left wondering what you missed until it's too late. I remember Mrs. Ellis. She was 86, sharp mind, quick wit, a fierce bridge player. Every Wednesday you could find her laughing and joking at the senior center with her friends. But one fall, she stopped coming. No big announcement, no dramatic exit, just silence. When her daughter asked why, Mrs. Ellis just shrugged and said, "I'm fine, just tired." 3 months later, she was gone, not from an illness anyone could see, but from the quiet, slow shutting down of a life well lived. This is the reality few dare to speak about. Withdrawal is not just loneliness. It's not just sadness. It's the spirit preparing to say goodbye, and it's one of the clearest, yet most easily ignored, signs that someone may be entering their final year. Now let me ask you, have you noticed someone pulling away, skipping family dinners, ignoring phone calls, choosing isolation over connection? If you have, don't just chalk it up to mood swings or stubbornness. Reach out. Fight through the distance. Even if they resist, and they might, keep showing up. Because your presence matters more than you know. Your willingness to stand in the gap, to be there even when they try to drift away, could make all the difference. You could be the one who reminds them they're not alone, not forgotten, not invisible. Withdrawal may be part of the journey, but love can light the way through it. Don't let silence be the last thing they hear. We've covered 4 signs so far: relentless fatigue, unexplained weight loss, sudden falls, and heartbreaking withdrawal. But the fifth? The fifth sign is perhaps the most deceptive of all, because on the surface, it can look like a miracle, a sudden burst of energy, a moment of clarity, a return to the person you thought you had lost. But it's not what it seems. It's the calm before the final storm. Let's move forward and uncover the last and most haunting, subtle sign. Now, this fifth sign is the cruelest of them all, because it doesn't come as weakness. It comes as strength. It fools families into hope, only to shatter it days or weeks later. It's called the final rally. Out of nowhere, a senior who has been tired, withdrawn, and frail suddenly perks up. They smile again. They ask for their favorite meal. They call an old friend. Maybe they even joke, laugh, or talk about future plans. It feels like a miracle. Families rejoice. They think, maybe it was just a phase. Maybe they're getting better. But here's the brutal truth. This sudden burst of energy often signals that the body and the soul are making final preparations for departure. It's not recovery, it's the last spark before the flame goes out. I saw it firsthand with Mr. Daniels. He had been in hospice care for months, sleeping most of the day, barely eating, barely speaking. His family had made peace with the inevitable. And then one morning he sat up in bed. He asked for pancakes. He cracked a joke about the hospital coffee being terrible. He asked his son about the upcoming baseball season. For one glorious day, Mr. Daniels was back, full of life. His wife cried tears of joy. His grandchildren hugged him tight. They thought, just for a moment, that maybe, just maybe, they would have more time. But 3 days later, Mr. Daniels passed quietly in his sleep. This is the cruelty of the final rally. It's a final gift, a chance for love, connection, forgiveness, closure. But only if you recognize it for what it is. Only if you don't waste those precious hours pretending everything is fine. Because when the rally comes, the clock is already ticking, fast. Have you ever seen something like this? A burst of joy, followed by an unbearable loss? If you have, you know the bittersweet pain I'm talking about. If not, now you do. And knowing could make all the difference. Because if you see it happen, you can do what matters most. You can say the words that need saying. You can hug tighter, laugh louder, forgive faster, love harder. You can stand up against the lie that everything's fine and instead make every last moment count. Don't let the final rally fool you. Let it wake you up. Let it drive you to action. Because at the end of the day, time is the one thing we can't get back. Now we've walked through all 5 subtle signs: the crushing fatigue, the loss of appetite and weight, the sudden falls, the painful withdrawal, and the haunting final rally. Each one a whisper from the body, each one a warning, if we have the courage to listen. Now let's pull it all together. Let's talk about how you can turn this knowledge into power and protect the dignity of those you love most. Now you know the truth. The signs are there. They've always been there. Subtle, silent, waiting for someone brave enough to notice, fatigue that no rest can fix, a vanishing appetite, falls that aren't just accidents, a heart that pulls away from the world, and finally, that bittersweet, final burst of energy before the long goodbye. These are not random events. They are the body's final messages, the soul's quiet preparations. And if you're willing to see them, if you have the courage to face them, you can change everything. You can stop pretending there's more time than there is. You can fight for their dignity. You can love them better in the days that truly matter. This isn't about giving up. It's about standing up. Standing up for the ones who stood for us when we were young and helpless. Standing up for truth, even when it's painful. Standing up for love when it's needed most. Because ignoring these signs doesn't protect anyone. It only steals time. It only deepens regret. And you, watching this right now, you have the chance to be different. To be the son, the daughter, the grandchild, the friend who doesn't look away, who doesn't flinch, who shows up. Because at the end of it all, it's not about how much time you have. It's about what you do with it. So here's my challenge to you. Look around, pay attention, have the hard conversations, hold the hands that need holding, say the words you'll wish you had said, because tomorrow isn't promised, and the greatest gift you can give is to make sure no one you love ever feels forgotten, abandoned, or alone in their final days. If this video touched you, if you saw someone you love in these signs, if you feel the urgency rising in your chest, don't stay silent. Leave a comment below. Share one thing you're going to do differently, starting today, to stand up for your loved ones. We read every comment, and every word you share matters more than you know. Together we can honor their lives. Together we can fight for the dignity, the respect, and the love that every senior deserves. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring enough to listen. And remember, the fight for dignity doesn't end here. It's just getting started.